My name is Alice, and I've reached the age of 32. Just 72 hours ago, I laid my father to rest and learned that playing the role of the devoted daughter evidently counts for absolutely zero once attorneys begin unveiling testaments. I remain the sole child who never abandoned him. During the period my sibling Robert constructed his financial kingdom in New York City, I remained here in our hometown of Millfield, replacing oxygen cylinders for our dad and transporting him to chemotherapy sessions. The malignant disease required 24 months to claim his life, and I dedicated each individual day throughout that entire span observing his gradual deterioration. I ought to have provided superior assistance to him. Robert displayed a self-satisfied grin toward me from the opposite side of the attorney's polished wooden table, adjusting his expensive neckwear. Perhaps under those circumstances, he might have recognized your genuine value. I maintained my silence. 2 decades of experience had demonstrated that answering Robert's provocations merely served to fuel his behavior. Subsequently, Mr. Mitchell, our father's legal representative, made a sound to capture attention and uttered 2 phrases that caused my circulation to halt. In reality, Robert, from which location are you observing this today? Place your geographical position in the discussion section underneath and press both the approval and subscription icons if you have experienced being underappreciated by your own relatives. You will certainly desire to remain present for the events that transpired afterward. Allow me to transport you backward 8 months to when this entire catastrophe genuinely commenced. Our father had been experiencing what he referred to as favorable periods, signifying he possessed the ability to elevate himself to a seated position without help and genuinely consume an entire portion of broth. On that particular Tuesday dawn in the 3rd month, I discovered him within his private workspace, gazing at a pile of official paperwork. "Alice, my dear child," he expressed, his vocal quality still maintaining that harsh characteristic from the medical interventions. "Take a seat. A discussion between us is necessary." I positioned myself on the periphery of his deteriorated cowhide seating, the identical furniture piece where he had recited nighttime tales to me a quarter-century previously. Presently, it emanated odors of pharmaceutical substances and remorse. "I possess knowledge of what you have relinquished for my benefit," he proceeded, his aged hands displaying slight vibrations as he extended toward my own. "Your employment opportunity in Boston, that young man you maintained romantic involvement with, your complete existence." "Father, please refrain from continuing." His grasp intensified. "Robert maintains the belief that he possesses entitlement to all possessions due to his achievements, due to the fact that he represents the male offspring who created something significant of his existence." Our father's amusement transformed into a respiratory spasm that resulted in him struggling for oxygen. "However, achievement does not exclusively concern financial resources, my precious daughter." I transferred his hydration container to him, observing as he battled to restore his respiration. The individual who had previously lifted me upon his upper back was vanishing incrementally with each passing day. "There exists information I require you to possess knowledge of regarding our family's circumstances," he communicated in a hushed tone, directing his attention toward the entrance, as though Robert might suddenly appear at any instant. "Something intricate that I have been managing in isolation. My cardiac organ missed a rhythm. Our father had perpetually shielded me from familial commercial difficulties. I possess the inability to disclose everything at this moment," he articulated with urgency. "However, provide me your assurance, regardless of what transpires following my departure from this world. Do not permit Robert to execute any significant determinations about family possessions without first consulting Mr. Mitchell. There exist matters Robert lacks awareness of, matters that possess the capability to demolish everything if managed incorrectly." Prior to my ability to inquire what he signified, we detected Robert's luxury automobile making rumbling sounds ascending the path to our residence. Our father rapidly reorganized the papers back into a beige document holder. Provide me your promise, Alice. Proceed to Mr. Mitchell initially before you consent to anything. I gave my word to our father. 14 days subsequently he had passed away. The memorial service represented everything Robert desired and absolutely nothing our father would have selected. Costly floral arrangements, professionally served gathering, and a collection of his New York City commercial connections who had never encountered our parent, but appeared regardless because professional relationship building does not cease for mourning. I positioned myself in the rear section of our juvenile household common area, observing Robert manipulate the assembly as though he was campaigning for political office. 36 months of providing care for our dad, and not a single person inquired about my emotional state. As an alternative, I received patronizing touches on my upper back and observations about how admirable it was that I had remained to provide assistance. Alice perpetually represented the emotionally responsive one. I detected Robert informing some female in expensive clothing, never possessed substantial aspiration, but she maintains a kind spirit. The emotionally responsive one, that constituted Robert's preferred method to diminish me, as though my emotional capacity was a personality defect rather than the explanation I had been the individual replacing our dad's sleeping linens at 3 o'clock during the dark hours. Mrs. Henderson from the adjacent residence located me concealing myself in the food preparation area, staring at a basin filled with soiled baking container vessels. "Your parent discussed you incessantly," she articulated, removing moisture from a circular dish with hands that had created sweet baked goods for every celebratory occasion of my youth. "Perpetually so filled with pride about how you provided care for him. Stated you possessed greater strength than anyone in the family comprehended." Her expressions impacted me more powerfully than any of Robert's degrading comments. At what point had anyone besides our father ever perceived me as possessing strength? He additionally stated, Mrs. Henderson proceeded softly, that you maintain the intelligence to manage intricate circumstances superior to individuals possessing double your years. That evening, following the final person expressing sympathy departed and Robert withdrew to his temporary lodging accommodation because remaining in our father's dwelling would have been excessively melancholic, I positioned myself in isolation in the common area. The absence of sound felt more substantial than all the commotion from the gathering. I recalled our father's final phrases about consulting Mr. Mitchell initially. There had existed an immediacy in his vocal expression that I was exclusively now commencing to comprehend. I extracted my mobile communication device and examined our father's saved connections until I located the attorney's numerical identifier. Despite the fact that it was approaching the midnight hour, I transmitted a written message. "Mr. Mitchell, this represents Alice Hartwell. Our father indicated I should communicate with you prior to executing any determinations about familial matters. Would we be capable of arranging a meeting during this 7-day period?" The reply arrived within moments. "Alice, I have been anticipating your communication. Are you capable of arriving at my professional location tomorrow at 2 o'clock during the afternoon? There exist matters your parent desired you to possess knowledge of that we possess the inability to examine while Robert was managing funeral preparations." Slumber did not arrive with ease during that evening. Each occasion I sealed my visual organs. I detected our father's vocal sound. There exist matters Robert lacks knowledge of, matters that possess the capability to demolish everything if managed incorrectly. What matters? What could potentially be so intricate that our dad possessed the inability to share it with both his offspring? I maintained a sensation that the following day's appointment with Mr. Mitchell was going to alter everything I believed I possessed knowledge of regarding our family. The legal professional's workspace emanated odors similar to aged publications and meticulously preserved confidential information. Mr. Mitchell had served as our father's attorney for 3 decades, and his aged facial features carried the burden of every familial crisis he had assisted in navigating. "Alice," he expressed, indicating with a gesture toward the seating across from his table. Your parent provided me extraordinarily precise directions about this discussion. He experienced considerable concern about how Robert would respond to the family's monetary circumstances. What monetary circumstances? I inquired, experiencing bewilderment. I have been controlling our father's financial records for 24 months. The building enterprise is functioning satisfactorily. Mr. Mitchell acknowledged with a serious expression. That constitutes a portion of what your parent desired me to clarify. The building corporation's prosperity is constructed upon borrowed temporal existence, and Robert maintains zero awareness of how unstable matters genuinely are. He accessed a substantial document container and distributed paperwork I had never observed previously. 15 years in the past, your parent discreetly rented the subterranean substance entitlements to your family's agricultural property to Mountain View Mining Corporation. The rental arrangement provided consistent revenue that permitted him to enlarge the building enterprise without acquiring hazardous financial obligations. I stared at the legal agreements, attempting to comprehend this information. Subterranean substance entitlements? What classification of subterranean substances? Initially, nothing especially valuable. Mountain View compensated a reasonable annual charge for the entitlement to execute geological examinations. Your parent utilized that financial resource intelligently. It maintained the enterprise financially viable during economic decline periods and permitted him to circumvent the classification of hazardous financial commitments that demolish familial corporations. Mr. Mitchell extracted another collection of paperwork. Nevertheless, for years in the past, your parent uncovered that his commercial collaborator, Vincent Torres, had been methodically stealing financial resources from the corporation. Torres had been conducting theft for approximately 3 years prior to your parent apprehending him. My digestive organ experienced a falling sensation. I had never detected the identification Vincent Torres. Your parent dedicated months recording the theft and constructing a legal case. However, as an alternative to pursuing criminal accusations, he executed a different selection. He utilized Torres's apprehension of legal prosecution to compel him to exit the enterprise completely. For what reason did he not have Torres placed under arrest? Due to the fact, Mr. Mitchell articulated softly. Torres issued warnings to reveal the subterranean substance rental agreement to Robert and asserted that your parent had been concealing possessions from his own family. Your parent comprehended that Robert would instantaneously insist to convert the extraction entitlements into immediate currency, which would have activated premature conclusion provisions and generated expenses to the family of millions in prospective revenue. The representation was becoming more transparent and more disturbing. Our father compensated Torres to safeguard the rental arrangement. Precisely, it generated expenses for him of approximately $2 million, financial resources he obtained loans for using prospective rental compensations as security. That constitutes the explanation the building corporation has been experiencing difficulties recently. Your parent relinquished immediate term stability to safeguard extended term familial security. Mr. Mitchell extended toward another document container. However, there exists additional information, Alice. 3 months in the past, Mountain View finalized their thorough geological examination. They located substantial accumulations of uncommon terrestrial minerals distributed throughout your property. He transferred to me a correspondence displaying the Mountain View Extraction Company symbol. They are presenting an offer to acquire the territory and subterranean substance entitlements completely for $65 million, in addition to percentage compensations on extracted materials throughout the subsequent 25 years. I possessed the inability to respire. $65 million. Your parent maintained awareness this proposal was approaching, Mr. Mitchell proceeded. That constitutes the explanation he reorganized his testament 6 months in the past. He comprehended that Robert would desire to transfer ownership instantaneously and divide the financial resources. but your parent maintained the belief the percentage compensations would furnish superior extended-term security for the family. Therefore, Robert lacks knowledge about any of this. Robert maintains awareness that Torres was compensated to exit, but he maintains the belief it was merely a standard commercial disagreement. He maintains zero awareness about the theft, the subterranean substance entitlements, or the extraction proposal. Mr. Mitchell directed his attention toward me with seriousness. Your parents' most significant apprehension was that Robert would execute impulsive determinations about familial possessions without comprehending their complete value or intricacy. I contemplated Robert's observation at the memorial service. Should have provided superior care for him. At what point does the testament revelation occur? I inquired. The following morning at 10 o'clock in the morning hours. Alice, I require your comprehension that your parent organized his testament with extraordinary caution to safeguard both yourself and Robert from executing financially damaging errors. However, Robert may not perceive it in that manner at the beginning. Have you at any point uncovered that all information you believed you maintained about your relatives constituted merely the exterior of a substantially more profound narrative? Distribute your contemplations in the discussion area underneath. The testament revelation was arranged for the subsequent dawn, but Robert materialized 60 minutes in advance, accompanied by 2 legal professionals I had never observed previously. Alice, he articulated, his vocal expression carrying that intonation he employed when he was preparing to clarify why I was incorrect about something I have been contemplating regarding our father's possessions, and there exist some concerns we require to examine. Mr. Mitchell emerged from his professional workspace, absorbing Robert's legal accompanying group with evident dissatisfaction. Robert, we examined this yesterday. The testament revelation occurs at 10 o'clock in the morning hours as arranged. In reality, articulated one of Robert's attorneys, a sharp-featured female in costly attire, we would prefer to examine any recent modifications to Mr. Hartwell's testament prior to the official revelation. Our customer maintains justification to maintain belief there may have been modifications executed during a duration when his parents' capacity for reasoning was compromised by pharmaceutical substances. I experienced my facial area become flushed with irritation. They were already implying our father did not possess mental capability when he executed his final determinations. That represents an intriguing statement, Mr. Mitchell articulated with composure, due to the fact that Frank anticipated that apprehension. He transferred to Robert's attorney a secured document container. Psychiatric examination from Dr. Sarah Chen recorded 4 months in the past. She verified that your customer's parent was absolutely mentally capable and particularly competent of executing intricate legal determinations. The sharp-featured attorney examined the paperwork, her assured expression displaying slight instability. In addition, Mr. Mitchell proceeded, Frank requested that I record his justifications for any testament modifications he executed. Would you prefer to detect that audio recording? Robert adjusted with discomfort in his seating furniture. Audio recording. Mr. Mitchell activated a digital audio recording apparatus. Our father's vocal sound occupied the space, weakened but absolutely transparent. This represents Frank Hartwell communicating of my own independent desire on the 15th day of March. I am modifying my testament due to the fact that I have uncovered information about familial financial matters that my male offspring, Robert, does not comprehend. I have additionally learned that Robert has been in communication with Vincent Torres despite not maintaining awareness that Torres stole financial resources from our familial commercial enterprise. Robert's facial appearance transformed to a pale coloration. What? Father, I never. Mr. Mitchell halted the audio recording. Would you prefer me to proceed, Robert? Your parent recorded multiple discussions where you referenced Torres as a prospective advisory professional for enlarging the enterprise following your reception of inheritance. I did not maintain awareness Torres stole anything. Robert expressed an opposition. He established contact with me months in the past with some intriguing commercial proposals. How was I expected to maintain awareness? Due to the fact, Mr. Mitchell interrupted, your parent attempted to issue warnings to you, but you persistently dismissed his apprehensions as pharmaceutical substance-induced bewilderment. He maintains 15 hours of recorded discussions recording your responses. The space became absent of sound except for the auditory perception of Robert's substantial respiration. Mr. Mitchell accessed the testament and commenced revealing its contents. To my male offspring, Robert, who has demonstrated his commercial intelligence in New York, I transfer my building corporation, incorporating all possessions, mechanical devices, and continuing legal agreements. Nevertheless, this reception of inheritance arrives with a 5-year administration limitation that Robert previously consented to in documented form, preventing any transfer of ownership or combination of corporation possessions. Robert appeared experiencing bewilderment. What administration limitation? The possessions planning paperwork you executed with your signature last year, Mr. Mitchell articulated. Your attorneys provided guidance to you. It constituted standard documentation. But you genuinely consented to a 5-year stabilization duration for any received commercial possessions. I observed Robert's attorneys communicate in hushed, urgent tones among their group as they examined documents from their portable carrying cases. To my female offspring, Alice, Mr. Mitchell proceeded, who has exhibited unwavering faithfulness and reliable capacity for reasoning. I transfer the familial agricultural residence and all connected property, incorporating subterranean substance entitlements and any associated commercial arrangements. The absence of sound extended between us, similar to a profound gap. That constitutes everything. Robert's vocal expression fractured. She receives a deteriorated agricultural property, and I receive a commercial enterprise that I possess the inability to even transfer ownership of. In reality, Robert, Mr. Mitchell articulated, and something in his intonation caused us both to become immobilized. There exists something additional your parent desired both of you to comprehend about the family's monetary circumstances. Mr. Mitchell extended into his table furniture and extracted the document container I had observed the day previously, the one incorporating the extraction, legal agreements, and geological examinations. Alice, he articulated, your reception of inheritance incorporates more than merely the agricultural residence. The property encompasses 47 land measurement units, incorporating the subterranean substance entitlements your parent rented to Mountain View Mining 15 years in the past. He distributed the geological examination across his table surface. The recognizable configuration of our familial territory was concealed with technical annotations and pigmented areas indicating subterranean substance accumulations. Robert, Mr. Mitchell proceeded, your parent maintained the extraction rental arrangement confidential due to the fact that he maintained awareness you would desire to convert it instantaneously for rapid financial resources. He maintained belief accurately, as the circumstances demonstrate, that forbearance would be more financially advantageous for the family extended term. Robert inclined in a forward direction, examining the paperwork with increasing fascination. How financially advantageous are we discussing? 3 months in the past, Mountain View finalized their thorough examination. They located substantial accumulations of uncommon terrestrial minerals indispensable for electronic devices and sustainable energy production. Mr. Mitchell extracted the official proposal correspondence. They are prepared to acquire the subterranean substance entitlements for $65 million, in addition to percentage compensations calculated at $15 to $20 million throughout the subsequent 25 years. I observed Robert's facial appearance transition through bewilderment, incredulity, and subsequently calculating avarice. $85 million, he articulated with deliberation. For Alice's property, for the property that our father particularly transferred to Alice, I rectified. Robert's facial expression became rigid. Alice, You possess the inability to seriously believe you maintain capability of managing negotiations valued at that substantial quantity of financial resources. This requires sophisticated commercial proficiency that you fundamentally do not possess. And that situation materialized, the identical, patronizing intonation he had employed throughout our complete existences. What I possess, I articulated softly, represents our Father's confidence. He selected to provide me this accountability for a justification. Due to the fact that you were present manipulating him during his illness, Robert responded sharply, his commercial professional exterior finally fracturing. You separated him from family and persuaded him to modify his testament in your advantage. Robert, Mr. Mitchell interrupted, I require to display to you something additional. He extracted another document container, this one incorporating the verification our father had assembled about Torres's theft. Your parent did not merely record Torres's theft for legal objectives. He additionally recorded your communications with Torres throughout the past year. Mr. Mitchell transferred to Robert a collection of documented electronic communications. Every communication where you examined modernizing the enterprise, introducing fresh proficiency, and maximizing post-reception of inheritance possibilities. Robert examined through the electronic communications, his facial appearance becoming increasingly pale with each document page. Torres has been providing you information and commercial strategies for months. Mr. Mitchell proceeded. What he did not communicate to you represents that those identical strategies are precisely similar to the ones he employed to steal financial resources from 7 additional familial commercial enterprises throughout the past 15 years. Mr. Mitchell accessed another documentation collection, displaying a law enforcement report and publication excerpts. Vincent Torres is presently under examination by the FBI for a behavioral sequence of focusing on familial possessed commercial enterprises during durations of transformation or catastrophe. Your parents' determination to compensate him to exit rather than legally prosecute him represented the exclusive action that prevented Torres from demolishing our building corporation. The method he demolished additional enterprises. Robert stared at the paperwork similar to they were inscribed in an unfamiliar linguistic system. Your discussions with Torres did not occur accidentally, Robert. He particularly focused on you due to the fact that he maintained awareness you would ultimately receive the enterprise as inheritance, and he was establishing position to regain accessibility to familial possessions through your involvement. I experienced a sensation of illness. During the period I had been concentrated on our father's medical assistance, Robert had been unknowingly formulating plans to transfer our familial commercial enterprise to a professional criminal individual. I did not maintain awareness. Robert communicated in a hushed tone. Negative, Mr. Mitchell consented. You did not maintain awareness due to the fact that you never inquired the appropriate questions. Your parent attempted to issue warnings to you about Torres on multiple occasions, but you dismissed his apprehensions as bewilderment from pain pharmaceutical substances. Mr. Mitchell activated another audio recording, this one of Robert's vocal sound from a telephone communication with our father. Father, you are contemplating excessively regarding this Torres circumstance. Vincent maintained some innovative concepts about enlarging into commercial development. Perhaps the temporal moment has arrived to relinquish aged resentments and concentrate on expansion possibilities. And our father's exhausted response, male offspring, if you maintained awareness of what I maintain awareness of about Vincent, you would comprehend why that represents an impossibility. But you never desired to maintain awareness of what he maintained awareness of, Mr. Mitchell articulated to Robert. You merely desired to receive inheritance and execute modifications. The space became absent of sound as the complete scope of Robert's proximate catastrophe became transparent. Therefore, what transpires at this moment? I inquired. Mr. Mitchell transferred to me a commercial identification card. You maintained some determinations to execute about the extraction proposal, Alice. However, You maintain temporal duration to execute them with caution using appropriate guidance. He directed his visual attention toward Robert. And you maintain a building commercial enterprise to operate with accountability for the subsequent 5 years. That evening, I positioned myself in our father's private workspace, attempting to comprehend everything I had acquired knowledge of. The beige document container he had secured months in the past remained in his table furniture storage compartment, identified with my identification in his cautious, handwritten script. Within the interior, I located a correspondence inscribed in the unstable writing style that had developed during his final months. My most beloved Alice, if you are examining this, it signifies the testament revelation proceeded as I anticipated, with Robert experiencing anger and you experiencing bewilderment about the reason I have provided you such tremendous accountability. I desire you to comprehend that my determination was not regarding loving you to a greater extent than your male sibling. It represented regarding trusting you to manage intricacy without permitting avarice to supersede reliable capacity for reasoning. Robert maintains numerous capabilities, but forbearance does not constitute one of them. If he received the subterranean substance entitlements as inheritance, he would transfer them instantaneously and expend the financial resources on enlarging the commercial enterprise or committing financial resources to new commercial endeavors. Within 5 years, the financial resources would be depleted, and our family would maintain nothing to demonstrate for this singular in existence possibility. You, conversely, have dedicated your complete existence contemplating regarding extended term ramifications. When you reached 10 years of age and preserved your winter holiday financial resources for 6 months to acquire your mother a particular birthday offering, I maintained awareness you comprehended something that Robert never acquired knowledge of. The distinction between desiring something and requiring something. This extraction financial resources does not represent something you require at this present moment, Alice. However, at some future point when you are prepared to commence a family, or when you locate a purpose that requires resources, or when Robert's offspring require assistance with higher education, this financial resource will be present due to the fact that you will have maintained it. The Torres circumstance is more intricate than I was capable of clarifying during the testament revelation. Robert does not merely lack knowledge about the theft. He has been actively developing a relationship with Torres for exceeding a year. I employed a confidential examination professional 6 months in the past when I comprehended what was transpiring. Torres has been cautiously manipulating Robert, providing him commercial concepts and strategies that produce auditory perception as innovative, but are genuinely designed to provide Torres accessibility to our corporation possessions once Robert receives inheritance. The examination professional's documentation is in the underground level secure container. The numerical sequence is your mother's birth date. What you will locate there will produce surprise in you, but it will additionally assist you to comprehend why I had to organize the testament, the method I executed. Robert does not merely represent naivety about Torres. He has already consented to introduce Torres back as a superior advisory professional as rapidly as he assumes control of the commercial enterprise. Torres has persuaded him that I compelled him to exit unfairly and that he maintains valuable connections that could multiply the corporation's revenue by 2. The reality is that Torres has been existing from obtained financial resources for 3 years, concealing himself from the families whose commercial enterprises he demolished and formulating his return through our family. I possess the inability to permit that to transpire, Alice, not merely for our benefit, but for the 12 employment individuals who depend on this commercial enterprise and the customers who maintain confidence in us to finalize their construction assignments with integrity. The extraction financial resources provides you alternatives, but it additionally provides you accountability. Employ it with intelligence. Assist Robert to comprehend what family genuinely signifies, not merely distributing financial gains, but safeguarding each other from executing catastrophic errors. There exists one additional matter you require to maintain awareness of. Mr. Mitchell maintains directions to establish contact with the FBI if Torres attempts to re-establish communication with our family following my death. Torres does not maintain awareness about the extraction financial resources at this present moment. However, when he uncovers information, he will become desperate to assert a portion of it. Be cautious, precious daughter. Be intelligent. And recall that occasionally the most significant demonstration of affection is declining to permit someone to execute a determination that will demolish them. I am filled with pride of who you have transformed into, Alice, not merely due to the fact that you provided care for me, but due to the fact that you have perpetually provided care for what possesses the most significance. The underground level secure container additionally incorporates legal paperwork that will safeguard you if Robert attempts to challenge the testament. I maintain hope you will never require them, but your male sibling has perpetually been superior at commercial matters than at accepting failure with dignity. I maintain affection for you both, but I maintain confidence in you to execute what is correct for all individuals. Father, I organized the correspondence with caution and proceeded by foot to the underground level. Behind the aged hydration heating apparatus, precisely where our father had articulated, was a secure container I had never detected during all my years existing in this residence. I inserted the numerical sequence representing Mother's birth date 0814, and the securing mechanism produced a clicking auditory perception accessing. Within the interior were 3 documentation collections: Torres's criminal background history, verification of his continuing communication with Robert, and a legal paperwork that would modify everything if I at any point required to employ it. However, it was the 4th object that caused me to produce a sudden inhalation of surprise. A handwritten annotation from Robert recorded merely 14 days in the past, consenting to Torres's proposal to reorganize the familial commercial enterprise for maximum operational effectiveness and financial gain. My male sibling had not merely been formulating plans to introduce Torres back as an advisory professional. He had been formulating plans to transfer our father's corporation to Torres's financial commitment assembly as rapidly as he received it as inheritance. Our father had not merely safeguarded me with his testament, he had safeguarded Robert from demolishing everything our family had constructed. 48 hours following the testament revelation, Robert produced knocking sounds on my front entrance at 7 o'clock during the morning hours. I possessed the capability to perceive through the transparent window surface that he had been positioned in his automobile in my residential path for at minimum 60 minutes. Developing the bravery for this discussion, Alice, he articulated when I accessed the entrance, we require to communicate. Genuinely communicate without attorneys or audio recordings or any of that additional material. I permitted him into the food preparation area and created coffee beverage while he positioned himself at our juvenile breakfast table surface, appearing smaller in some manner than he had appeared in Mr. Mitchell's professional workspace. I have been contemplating regarding everything our father articulated about Torres, about the commercial enterprise he commenced. I desire you to maintain awareness that I maintained zero consciousness. Vincent represented a criminal individual. I maintain belief in you. I articulated and signified it. Robert was numerous characteristics: arrogant, patronizing, self-centered, but he was not malevolent. He had been manipulated by someone substantially more experienced at fraudulent behavior. The circumstance is, Robert proceeded, I have been examining the building corporation's financial records since the testament revelation. Genuinely examining, not merely glancing at the condensed documentation our father employed to transmit to me. He extracted a document container of monetary paperwork. Our father obtained loans using prospective revenue to compensate Torres to exit, but he additionally employed that circumstance to reorganize the corporation's financial obligations and eliminate some hazardous legal agreements that could have generated bankruptcy for us during the subsequent economic decline duration. Robert's vocal expression carried an intonation of reluctant respect. He was not merely safeguarding us from Torres. He was safeguarding us from my impatience. This represented the most contemplative examination I had at any point detected from Robert about our family circumstances. Alice, I desire to suggest something, and I desire you to detect me completely prior to you respond. I acknowledged with a head movement, experiencing curiosity despite my own perspective. Maintain the subterranean substance, entitlements. Manage the discussions with Mountain View in whatever method you believe is most advantageous. However, permit me to acquire the agricultural residence from you for equitable commercial value. I desire to relocate back to Millfield and operate our father's commercial enterprise the method he would have desired. I produced a blinking visual motion, experiencing surprise. You desire to depart from New York? I have been contemplating regarding that. Additionally, Robert executed movements with his hands through his hair, a physical expression I recalled from our youth when he was processing through a challenging difficulty. My commercial enterprise in Manhattan is achieving success, but it is not providing satisfaction. I am creating wealthy individuals, more wealthy, but I am not constructing anything that maintains significance. He indicated with a gesture around our mother's food preparation area with its deteriorated counter surfaces and non-matching seating furniture. Our father's commercial enterprise employs 12 individuals who exist in this community. It constructs residential dwellings and commercial structures that will be present for successive generations. When our father experienced death, 3 different customers arrived to the memorial service to communicate to me how truthful and dependable he was. Robert's vocal expression captured slightly. At what tempo point was the final occasion someone articulated that about my professional activities in New York? I examined my male sibling's facial features, searching for indications of the manipulation or strategic reasoning that had characterized our relationship for such extended duration. As an alternative, I perceived something I had not perceived since we were juvenile individuals. Authentic uncertainty. What about your residential accommodation in Manhattan? Your customers in that location? I possess the capability to manage the majority of my present construction assignments from a distance, and I am not accepting new customers. I desire to acquire knowledge of how to operate our father's commercial enterprise appropriately prior to the 5-year limitation duration concludes. He encountered my visual organs in a direct manner. Alice, I was incorrect about nearly everything. About Torres, about our father's capacity for reasoning, about your competencies. I do not desire to be incorrect about this circumstance. Additionally, it represented the most proximate matter to an expression of regret I had at any point obtained from Robert. The agricultural residence is not available for transfer of ownership, I articulated ultimately. His facial appearance experienced a falling sensation. However, prior to his capability to respond, I proceeded. However, you possess the capability to exist here during the period you are acquiring knowledge of the commercial enterprise. Our father's sleeping chamber is excessively painful for me to proceed into regardless, and this residence is excessively substantial for one individual. Robert stared at me with fixed attention. You would permit me to relocate back to the residential dwelling. On one stipulation, I articulated 0 additional confidential information, 0 additional formulating plans without communicating to each other initially. If someone establishes approach to you about commercial possibilities or financial commitments, you communicate to me. If I am examining significant determinations about the extraction financial resources, I communicate to you. We represent family, Robert. The temporal moment has arrived. We commenced demonstrating behavior similar to it. My male sibling's visual organs became occupied with liquid moisture. The initial authentic emotional response I had perceived from him since we were juvenile individuals. Alice, I do not possess worthiness. This does not concern what you possess worthiness of, I interrupted. It concerns what our family requires. Our father dedicated his final 24 months eliminating problematic circumstances and safeguarding us from catastrophes we did not even maintain awareness were approaching. The minimum action we possess the capability to execute is attempt to provide care for each other proceeding in a forward temporal direction. Robert acknowledged with a head movement, possessing inability to articulate verbally. That afternoon, we operated a vehicle to Mr. Mitchell's professional workspace in a combined manner to examine the practical specifications of Robert's transformation back to Millfield. It produced sensations of peculiarity but correctness, formulating plans as collaborative individuals rather than opponents. However, as we departed from the attorney's professional workspace, I detected a recognizable automobile pursuing us at a spatial separation. When I indicated it in the direction of Robert, his facial appearance transformed to a pale coloration. That represents Vincent's automobile, he articulated. Torres had returned, and he had transparently acquired knowledge about the extraction, financial resources. What do you believe will transpire subsequently? Place your anticipations in the discussion area underneath. The subsequent morning, my mobile communication apparatus produced ringing sounds at 6 o'clock during the morning hours. The identification display demonstrated an unrecognized numerical sequence, but something communicated to me to respond to it. Ms. Hartwell, this represents Vincent Torres. I maintain belief we require to possess a discussion about your recent, substantial financial acquisition. His vocal expression was fluid, assured, precisely what I had anticipated from someone who had dedicated years manipulating individuals. Mr. Torres, I articulated, positioning the communication apparatus on auditory amplification mode so Robert possessed the capability to detect. I do not believe we maintain anything to examine. Oh, I believe we execute. You perceive, I have been pursuing the progressions with your parents' possessions, and I am experiencing apprehension that you may not completely comprehend the intricacy of what you are managing. Robert was displaying vibrating movements with his head in a frantic manner, forming words with his mouth without producing sound. Do not establish engagement with him. However, I was experiencing curiosity to detect Torres's presentation. I am detecting, I articulated, managing a multiple $1 million subterranean substance entitlements transaction requires proficiency that the majority of individuals fundamentally do not possess. The extraction industrial sector is recognized for acquiring advantage of individuals possessing insufficient experience as property possessors. Without appropriate representation, you could with ease generate losses of millions due to disadvantageous legal agreement provisions. And you are presenting to assist me from the benevolence of your cardiac organ. Torres produced a sound of amusement. Nothing in commercial matters is without financial cost, Miss Hartwell. I would generate charges for a standard advisory charge. Communicate 15% of your final resolution. It represents substantially less than the majority of corporations would generate charges for, and I provide assurance you will conclude with substantially more financial resources than if you attempt to manage this in isolation. 15% of $80 million, $12 million for Torres, merely for materializing at the location. That represents a substantially generous proposal, I articulated. However, I believe I possess the capability to manage in my own capacity. Ms. Hartwell, Torres's vocal expression became rigid. I do not believe you comprehend what you are declining. I maintain 15 years of experience in subterranean substance entitlements discussions. I maintain connections distributed throughout the industrial sector. I maintain awareness which corporations are reliable and which ones will execute fraudulent behavior toward you, similar to how you executed fraudulent behavior toward my parent. The communication connection became absent of sound for a temporal instant. Subsequently, Torres produced laughter, an auditory perception that caused my dermal surface to produce sensations of discomfort. Your parent communicated to you his interpretation of our commercial disagreement. I perceive. What he potentially did not reference is that I maintain documentation of some substantially questionable monetary determinations he executed throughout the years. determinations that the IRS may locate intriguing. My circulation experienced a cold sensation. Torres was issuing warnings to provide information about our father to the IRS, which possessed the capability to activate an examination and immobilize all familial possessions. What classification of determinations? I inquired with caution. The subterranean substance rental revenue for initial consideration. Substantially creative financial recording methods to minimize financial obligation responsibility. Subsequently, there exists the matter of some building legal agreements that were finalized with, shall we articulate, adaptable compliance to construction regulations. Robert captured my upper limb, displaying head movements with violence. These were transparently false statements designed to produce apprehension in me toward cooperation. Mr. Torres, I articulated, if you maintained verification of genuine misconduct, you would have employed it years in the past rather than stealing financial resources from my parents' commercial enterprise. Who articulates I stole anything? Torres's vocal expression transformed to a cold quality. Your parents' allegations were never demonstrated in legal proceedings. They were merely the apprehensive false beliefs of an ill individual who possessed the inability to manage possessing a more youthful, more innovative collaborator. The absolute boldness of his false statements was producing breathless sensation. I will communicate to you what? I articulated. Why do you not arrive by the residential dwelling this afternoon? We possess the capability to examine this in a facial-to-facial manner. Alice, negative. Robert communicated in hushed, urgent tones. Excellent, Torres articulated. I will be present at that location at 2 o'clock during the afternoon. And Miss Hartwell, I maintain hope you will be more logical in physical presence than you are demonstrating on the communication apparatus. Following his termination of the communication, Robert stared at me similar to I had experienced loss of my mental capacity. Alice, you possess the inability to permit him to arrive here. He represents danger and he represents desperation. Individuals execute unintelligent actions when they are experiencing desperation, which represents precisely why we require to manage this with caution. I extracted my mobile communication apparatus and operated the numerical sequence for Mr. Mitchell's contact. We are not arranging a meeting with Torres in isolation. 60 minutes subsequently, Mr. Mitchell materialized with 2 additional individuals. Detective Sarah Martinez from the State Law Enforcement Fraud Section and FBI Agent David Park from the Professional Financial Crime Division. Torres does not maintain awareness at this present moment. Detective Martinez clarified, but he has been under federal examination for 18 months. We have been constructing a legal case founded on grievances from 7 different families whose commercial enterprises he demolished. The difficulty is that the majority of his casualties were excessively experiencing embarrassment or financially devastated to pursue legal prosecution. Agent Park supplemented. Torres is substantially careful about concealing his evidence trail and discrediting anyone who attempts to reveal him. But at this present moment, he is executing an error. Mr. Mitchell articulated, by issuing warnings to you and attempting to extract advisory charges, he is providing us justifications for instantaneous placement under arrest. At precisely 2 o'clock during the afternoon, Vincent Torres produced knocking sounds on our front entrance. I accessed it to locate an individual who appeared nothing similar to the assured criminal intellectual leader I had created in imagination. Torres was of shorter physical stature than typical measurement, potentially in his middle 50s, with diminishing hair follicles and costly attire that possessed the inability to completely conceal his desperation. Ms. Hartwell, he articulated with practiced, attractive qualities. Expression of gratitude for consenting to arrange a meeting with me. Arrive in the interior, I articulated. There exist some individuals I would prefer you to encounter. The visual appearance on Torres's facial features when he perceived Detective Martinez and Agent Park was valued for every temporal instant of nervous apprehension I had experienced about this meeting. Vincent Torres, Agent Park articulated, elevating to a standing position and exhibiting his official identification. You are under placement of arrest for conspiracy to execute fraudulent behavior, financial resources cleansing, and forced extraction of resources. As the hand restraining devices produced clicking sounds around Torres's wrist areas, he directed visual attention at me with undisguised animosity. This does not represent conclusion. He produced aggressive vocal sounds. You maintain zero consciousness what you are entering into with that extraction transaction. Those corporations will consume you in a living state. Perhaps I articulated with composure. However, at minimum, they do not represent criminal individuals. As the law enforcement automobile vanished down our residential path with Torres in the rear seating area, Robert transformed toward me with something approaching profound respect. Alice, how did you maintain awareness to establish contact with the FBI? I did not maintain awareness, I acknowledged, but our father's correspondence referenced that Mr. Mitchell maintained directions to establish contact with them if Torres attempted to establish approach to our family. I calculated it was valued for a communication connection. You established a trap for him, Robert articulated with admiration. Negative, I rectified. I provided him adequate restraining material to suspend himself by execution. There exists a distinction. However, even as I experienced relief sensation at Torres's placement under arrest, I maintained awareness this represented merely the commencement. In 48 hours, representatives from Mountain View Mining would materialize to commence serious discussions about the subterranean substance entitlements acquisition. And in contrast to Torres, they were absolutely legitimate commercial individuals who would anticipate me to maintain awareness precisely what I was executing. The Mountain View extraction representatives materialized on the 5th day of the week morning in a vehicle assembly that appeared similar to a chief executive visit. 3 black large utility vehicles, 7 individuals in costly attire, and adequate portable carrying cases to supply a legal corporation. I encountered them in our father's private workspace, which I had prepared by eliminating all the familial photographic images and personal objects that may cause me to produce appearance as inexperienced or emotional. Robert positioned himself adjacent to me, recording annotations and inquiring technical questions that exhibited we were not absolute, inexperienced individuals. Ms. Hartwell, articulated Dr. Sarah Chin, Mountain View's principal discussion professional. We are substantially filled with enthusiasm about the capability of your property. Our geological examinations indicate subterranean substance accumulations that could be substantially valuable to both involved groups. She distributed in an extended manner visual representations and technical documentation that appeared similar to something from an educational scientific publication. However, Dr. Chun proceeded, I desire to be absolutely transparent with you about the difficulties involved in this construction assignment. Subterranean substance extraction represents intricate, extended-term execution with significant environmental and operational considerations. This did not represent the elevated pressure commercial presentation I had been anticipating. As an alternative, Dr. Chun was clarifying prospective difficulties. Our initial proposal of $65 million is founded on present commercial values and extraction financial cost calculations. However, those numerical values could modify substantially founded on elements we possess the inability to control: environmental regulations, commercial fluctuations, extraction difficulties, or modifications in requirement for uncommon terrestrial minerals. Robert inclined in a forward direction. Are you attempting to communicate to us in opposition to transferring ownership to you? Dr. Chin produced a facial expression of pleasure. In reality, we are attempting to create certainty you comprehend precisely what you are consenting to. Mountain View has been damaged in the past by property possessors who maintained unrealistic anticipations about extraction operations. We locate that truthful communication in advance prevents costly legal disagreements subsequently. She transferred to me a paperwork that was substantially more substantial in thickness than I had anticipated. This represents our complete proposal, incorporating all provisions and stipulations. I substantially recommend that you possess it examined by attorneys who concentrate in subterranean substance entitlements legal matters, not merely general professional practice legal professionals. I dedicated the subsequent 60 minutes inquiring questions that Mr. Mitchell had assisted me to prepare. Dr. Chin responded to each one with thoroughness, never producing appearance as experiencing impatience or patronizing behavior. "Ms. Hartwell," she articulated ultimately, "may I inquire why you are examining transferring the entitlements completely rather than discussing a rental arrangement with percentage compensation payments?" It was a reliable question, one that Robert and I had examined extensively. My parent dedicated 15 years managing a rental arrangement. I articulated it provided consistent revenue, but it additionally required persistent attention and proficiency that I am not possessing certainty I possess the capability to furnish extended term. That represents an equitable observation. Dr. Chin acknowledged. Rental administration possesses the capability to be intricate, but I desire to create certainty you have examined all your alternatives. She extracted another paperwork, a comprehensive examination of different monetary structures for our arrangement. A direct acquisition provides you instantaneous financial resources, but zero continuing revenue. A rental with percentage compensations furnishes less initial financial resources, but potentially substantially elevated total returns throughout temporal duration. There additionally exists a combination alternative, partial acquisition with diminished percentage compensations that provides you substantial instantaneous financial resources in addition to extended term revenue security. I directed visual attention at Robert, who elevated his shoulder areas in a gesture. It represents your determination, Alice. Our father transferred this to you for a justification. That evening, following the Mountain View assembly departed, Robert and I positioned ourselves in the food preparation area examining the multiple proposals. The combination alternative creates the most logical perception to me, Robert articulated. 40 million in advance, in addition to percentage compensations that could accumulate another 30 to 50 million throughout 25 years. However, what if the commercial marketplace for uncommon terrestrial minerals experiences collapse? What if environmental regulations terminate the operation? What if Mountain View experiences financial bankruptcy? What if you receive impact by electrical atmospheric discharge? Robert presented in opposition. Alice, you possess the inability to execute determinations founded on every potential catastrophe. Occasionally, you are required to maintain confidence that circumstances will function successfully. It was reliable guidance, but I was not prepared to execute a $70 million determination following 48 hours of examination. I require additional temporal duration, I articulated. How? Substantial additional temporal duration. Dr. Chen articulated, I possess the capability to acquire up to 60 days to determine. I desire to employ at minimum some of that temporal duration to genuinely comprehend what I am selecting between. Robert acknowledged with head movement. That represents intelligent behavior. However, Alice, during the period you are contemplating regarding it, there exists something additional we require to examine. He extracted a document container I had not observed previously. I have been conducting research regarding Torres's background history, attempting to comprehend how I obtained such absolute deception by him. Robert's vocal expression was soft, nearly experiencing shame. What I located is that Torres did not merely focus on me in a random manner. He particularly conducts research on families with aging parents who possess valuable possessions. He transferred to me a publication excerpt from a municipality in Ohio. This family possessed a transportation corporation valued at approximately $3 million. When the father obtained illness, Torres established approach to the male offspring with advisory services and enlargement concepts. Within 18 months, the commercial enterprise was experiencing bankruptcy, and the family experienced loss of everything. I examined through the written material, experiencing sensation of illness. The behavioral sequence was precisely similar to what had nearly transpired to us. Torres focuses on families during temporal periods of catastrophe due to the fact that represents when individuals are most susceptible to manipulation, Robert proceeded. He particularly searches for circumstances where adult offspring are executing inheritance determinations while managing grief and psychological pressure. How substantial quantity of families did he demolish? At minimum 7 that I possessed the capability to record. Potentially more that were never provided information about. Robert encountered my visual organs. Alice, I require you to maintain awareness. If our father had not organized his testament, the method he executed, Torres would have obtained everything. Not merely the building commercial enterprise, but information about the subterranean substance entitlements, additionally. The complete scope of what our father had prevented impacted me similar to a physical force. Our father did not merely safeguard me, I articulated with deliberation. He safeguarded both of us. Affirmative, Robert consented. And at this present moment, it represents our responsibility to create certainty his protection was not expended without value. 21 days into my 60-day determination duration, I obtained a communication connection that modified everything. Miss Hartwell, this represents Jennifer Torres. My circulation experienced a cold sensation. Are you associated with Vincent Torres? Regrettably, affirmative. Vincent represents my previous spouse. Her vocal expression carried a combination of exhaustion and resolve. I am establishing communication due to the fact that I maintain information about your circumstances that I believe you require to detect. Against Robert's guidance, I consented to arrange a meeting with Jennifer at a beverage establishment in the subsequent municipality. She was nothing similar to what I had anticipated. An exhausted-appearing female in her 40s with intelligent visual organs and roughened hands that implied she executed labor for sustenance. Vincent has been establishing communication connections to me from incarceration facility. She commenced without preliminary statements. He is experiencing fury about his placement under arrest, and he has been expressing rage about your family and the extraction financial resources. What did he articulate? Jennifer extracted a recording publication. He communicated to me that your subterranean substance entitlements are valued substantially more than Mountain View is presenting. He asserts to maintain internal information about uncommon terrestrial mineral values that imply you could obtain double what they are suggesting. I experienced a sensation of apprehension, discomfort. How would he maintain awareness of that? That represents what I desired to issue warning to you about, Jennifer articulated. Vincent does not maintain internal information about mineral values. What he maintains represents a behavioral sequence of communicating to individuals their possessions are valued more than they genuinely are, subsequently establishing position for himself as the proficient individual who possesses the capability to obtain them a superior transaction. She accessed her recording publication to a document surface concealed with her handwritten script. Following Vincent establishing approach to you, he commenced executing communication connections to attempt to locate additional extraction corporations that may be experiencing fascination in your property. He was formulating plans to establish contact with you subsequently and assert that he had uncovered a competitive purchasing conflict for your subterranean substance entitlements. However, he is in incarceration facility. Vincent maintains collaborators who are not in incarceration facility at this present moment. Jennifer articulated with severity. I am communicating to you this due to the fact that Vincent demolished my family's commercial enterprise 15 years in the past employing precisely these behavioral methods. He persuaded my parent that his production corporation was valued substantially more than the proposals he was obtaining. Subsequently assisted to discuss a transaction that resulted in my family possessing nothing. Jennifer extracted a photographic image. An individual of middle age standing in front of an industrial facility. My parent dedicated 40 years constructing that commercial enterprise. Following Vincent completing his actions with him, our father experienced loss of everything and experienced death of cardiac failure 6 months subsequently. I do not desire that to transpire to another family. For what reason are you assisting me? I represent the justification your previous spouse is in incarceration facility. Jennifer produced a facial expression of severity. Your cooperation with the FBI provided them verification they have been attempting to assemble for 24 months. She transferred to me a commercial identification card for Agent Park. Vincent's collaborators do not maintain awareness that I have been cooperating with FBI examination. If anyone establishes approach to you, presenting to maximize your subterranean substance entitlement's value, establish communication with Agent Park instantaneously. They will be substantially charming and persuasive. That evening, I established communication to Dr. Chen at Mountain View Mining with a theoretical question about Chinese extraction corporations. Miss Hartwell, has someone established approach to you with that assertion? It represents theoretical. Well, that assertion would be false. Chinese extraction corporations are typically more experiencing fascination in acquiring extracted materials than obtaining foreign, subterranean substance entitlements. Dr. Chen clarified that fraudulent subterranean substance entitlement strategies are regrettably common. Following I terminated the communication, I comprehended that our father's protection had not concluded with his death. 48 hours subsequently, David Wu established communication proposing $90 million for my subterranean substance entitlements. I terminated the communication and established contact with Agent Park. Mr. Wu represents Vincent Torres's male sibling offspring. You just assisted us to supplement another allegation to Torres's formal accusation. That evening, Robert and I executed our determination about the Mountain View proposal. The combination alternative, $40 million in advance in addition to percentage compensations. I am possessing certainty that our father did not preserve this financial resource for me, so I possess the capability to experience loss of it to criminal individuals. We are ultimately demonstrating behavior similar to family. The official execution ceremony was arranged for a 5th-day morning in Mr. Mitchell's gathering space. However, when I materialized, I located Robert with a severe facial expression. Torres experienced escape from county incarceration facility the previous evening. My circulation experienced a cold sensation. The FBI believes it was David Wu, but they have not located either of them. Agent Park providing recommendation that we delay the official execution until Torres is recaptured. Negative, articulated ultimately. We are not delaying. Torres has generated terror in our family for adequate extended duration, which represents precisely why we are finalizing this today. Once the legal agreement is executed with signature, Torres maintains zero justification to arrive after us. Within the interior of the legal professional workspace, Dr. Chen and her assembly were experiencing anticipation. When I clarified the circumstances with Torres, her facial expression became serious. I express appreciation, but I desire to proceed in a forward direction. The execution process acquired 2 hours. However, ultimately, Dr. Chen transferred to me a writing instrument for the final signature. You are at this present moment $40 million possessing greater wealth. As the Mountain View Assembly organized their paperwork, Mr. Mitchell's administrative assistant produced knocking sounds. There exists a Vincent Torres, present demanding to perceive Ms. Hartwell. The space transformed to silent. Do not establish communication to anyone. Permit him in the interior. Alice, absolutely negative. He represents desperation and potentially represents danger, which represents why I desire to conclude this in a facial-to-facial manner. I am experiencing exhaustion of being, experiencing apprehension of Vincent Torres. He appeared terrible without facial hair grooming, displaying rumpled clothing. However, His vocal expression was still, fluid, and assured. I maintain information about your subterranean substance entitlements that possess the capability to preserve you millions of dollars. Torres extracted a document container. European extraction corporations are prepared to present you $75 million. $35 million more than this American corporation is presenting. I elevated my hand. May I perceive the proposal paperwork? Torres experienced hesitation for merely a temporal instant, adequate extended duration for me to comprehend that his document container incorporated unwritten surfaces that were not genuinely legal proposals. Mr. Torres, I articulated, elevating to standing position, I maintain some information that may generate fascination in you. I transferred to him the executed Mountain View legal agreement. I just transferred my subterranean substance entitlements to Mountain View Mining for $40 million in addition to percentage compensations. The transaction represents complete. There exists nothing remaining for you to steal from my family. Torres stared at the legal agreement, his facial appearance transitioning through incredulity, fury, and ultimately desperation. You maintain zero consciousness what you just executed. That European corporation was going to provide compensation to you $75 million. Or, I articulated with composure, I just prevented you from executing fraudulent behavior with a false proposal from a corporation that does not possess existence. Torres's assured exterior finally fractured absolutely. He never finalized the warning. Agent Park and 2 additional FBI agents entered and placed Torres under arrest for the second temporal occurrence in 21 days. Following Torres had departed, Dr. Chin articulated ultimately, how did you maintain awareness his European proposal was false? I produced a facial expression of pleasure, due to the fact that legitimate extraction corporations do not transmit escaped criminal individuals under conviction to discuss million-dollar transactions. 6 months subsequently, I positioned myself in the rear exterior area of the agricultural residence. The initial percentage compensation financial document from Mountain View had materialized $200,000 for the initial 6 months of extraction operations. However, it was not the financial resources that caused me to experience sensation of possessing wealth. It was the communication connection from Agent Park. Vincent Torres was provided sentence yesterday. 22 years in federal incarceration facility. His male sibling offspring, David Wu, obtained 15 years. Torres was directed to provide compensation, full restoration to all his casualties. Following I terminated the communication, I contemplated about the correspondence our father had inscribed about comprehending the distinction between desiring something and requiring something. What I had desired was retribution against Torres. What I had required was security, tranquility of mental state, and the awareness that additional families would not experience suffering the method we nearly had. Robert located me in the vegetation cultivation area examining architectural design documents. Alice, I require to communicate to you something. I desire you to maintain awareness that if anything transpires to me, my portion of the building commercial enterprise proceeds to you, not to my female offspring, Madison. He transferred to me a legal paperwork establishing a financial confidence arrangement for Madison with you as the management individual. That evening, Jennifer established communication from California, expressing gratitude for consenting to be the management individual. For what reason are you willing to maintain confidence in me with determinations about Madison's prospective temporal duration? Due to the fact that when Vincent attempted to demolish your family, you did not merely safeguard yourself. You created certainty he obtained placement under arrest, so he possessed the inability to generate harm to anyone additional. 14 days subsequently, Madison arrived to experience visit. Aunt Alice, Father articulates you are possessing richness at this present moment due to the fact that grandfather transferred to you particular soil material. Are you going to relocate to a substantial municipality? Negative. Precious offspring, I am going to remain precisely present. Madison examined this with seriousness. Reliable. Father is experiencing greater happiness present than he was in New York. That evening, Robert and I positioned ourselves on the front exterior elevated platform. Do you at any point experience contemplation what would have transpired if our father had distributed everything in an equal manner between us? You would have desired to transfer ownership of the subterranean substance, entitlements, instantaneously. And Torres would have persuaded me to create him a collaborative individual. And within 24 months, Torres would have stolen everything. Therefore, our father's testament was not merely about the financial resources. It represented about preserving our family. Our father comprehended something we did not, that occasionally safeguarding individuals from obtaining what they desire represents the most advantageous method to provide them what they require. As I positioned myself present in the darkness, I comprehended that our father's most significant beneficial offering had not been $40 million in subterranean substance entitlements. It had been providing instruction to me the distinction between being possessing richness and being possessing wealth. Possessing richness represents maintaining financial resources. Possessing wealth represents maintaining something valued for safeguarding.